Episode 60. Cottages stood on either side of the narrow road, Christmas decorations twinkling in their windows. A short way ahead of them, a glow of golden streetlights indicated the center of the village.
"All this snow," Hermione whispered beneath the cloak. "Why didn't we think of snow? After all our precautions, we'll leave prints. We'll just have to get rid of them. You go in front. I'll do it."
Harry did not want to enter the village like a pantomime horse, trying to keep themselves concealed while magically covering their traces. "Let's take off the cloak," said Harry. And when she looked frightened, "Oh, come on, we don't look like us, and there's no one around." He stowed the cloak under his jacket, and they made their way forward unhampered, the icy air stinging their faces as they passed more cottages. Any one of them might have been the one in which James and Lily had once lived, or where Bathilda lived now. Harry gazed at their front doors, their snow-burdened roofs, and their front porches, wondering whether he remembered any of them, knowing deep inside that it was impossible, that he had been little more than a year old when he had left this place forever. He was not even sure whether he would be able to see the cottage at all. He did not know what happened when the subjects of a Fidelius charm died. Then the little lane along which they were walking curved to the left, and the heart of the village, a small square, was revealed to them. Strung all around with colored lights, there was what looked like a war memorial in the middle, partly obscured by a wind-blown Christmas tree. There were several shops, a post office, a pub, and a little church whose stained-glass windows were glowing jewel-bright across the square. The snow here had become impacted. It was hard and slippery where people had trodden on it all day. Villagers were crisscrossing in front of them, their figures briefly illuminated by street lamps. They heard a snatch of laughter and pop music as the pub door opened and closed. Then they heard a carol start up inside the little church.
"Harry, I think it's Christmas Eve," said Hermione. "Is it?"
He had lost track of the date. They had not seen a newspaper for weeks.
"I'm sure it is," said Hermione, her eyes upon the church. They'll be in there, won't they? Your Mom and Dad? I can see the graveyard behind it."
Harry felt a thrill of something that was beyond excitement, more like fear. Now that he was so near, he wondered whether he wanted to see after all. Hermione knew how he was feeling because she reached for his hand and took the lead for the first time, pulling him forward. Halfway across the square, however, she stopped dead.
"Harry, look!"
She was pointing at the war memorial. As they had passed it, it had transformed. Instead of an obelisk covered in names, there was a statue of 3 people. A man with untidy hair and glasses, a woman with long hair and a kind, pretty face, and a baby boy sitting in his mother's arms. Snow lay upon all their heads like fluffy white caps. Harry drew closer, gazing up into his parents' faces. He had never imagined that there would be a statue. How strange it was to see himself represented in stone, a happy baby without a scar on his forehead. "Come on," said Harry when he had looked his fill, and they turned again toward the church. As they crossed the road, he glanced over his shoulder. The statue had turned back into the war memorial. The singing grew louder as they approached the church. It made Harry's throat constrict, reminded him so forcefully of Hogwarts, of Peeves bellowing rude versions of carols from inside suits of armor, of the great hall's 12 Christmas trees, of Dumbledore wearing a bonnet he had won in a cracker, of Ron in a hand-knitted sweater. There was a kissing gate at the entrance to the graveyard. Hermione pushed it open as quietly as possible, and they edged through it. On either side of the slippery path to the church doors, the snow lay deep and untouched. They moved off through the snow, carving deep trenches behind them as they walked around the building, keeping to the shadows beneath the brilliant windows. Behind the church, row upon row of snowy tombstones protruded from a blanket of pale blue that was flecked with dazzling red, gold, and green wherever the reflections from the stained glass hit the snow. Keeping his hand closed tightly on the wand in his jacket pocket, Harry moved toward the nearest grave. "Look at this. It's an abbot. Could be some long-lost relation of Hannah's."
"Keep your voice down,"
Hermione begged him. They waded deeper and deeper into the graveyard, gouging dark tracks into the snow behind them, stooping to peer at the words on old headstones, every now and then squinting into the surrounding darkness to make absolutely sure that they were unaccompanied.
"Harry, here!"
Hermione was 2 rows of tombstones away. He had to wade back to her, his heart positively banging in his chest. "Is it—"
"No, but look!"
She pointed to the dark stone. Harry stooped down and saw upon the frozen, lichen-spotted granite the words Kendra Dumbledore, and a short way below her dates of birth and death, and her daughter, Ariana. There was also a quotation, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." So, Rita Skeeter and Muriel had got some of their facts right. The Dumbledore family had indeed lived here, and part of it had died here. Seeing the grave was worse than hearing about it. Harry could not help thinking that he and Dumbledore both had deep roots in this graveyard, and that Dumbledore ought to have told him so. Yet he had never thought to share the connection. They could have visited this place together. For a moment, Harry imagined coming here with Dumbledore, of what a bond that would have been, of how much it would have meant to him. But it seemed that to Dumbledore, the fact that their families lay side by side in the same graveyard had been an unimportant coincidence, irrelevant, perhaps, to the job he wanted Harry to do. Hermione was looking at Harry, and he was glad that his face was hidden in shadow. He read the words on the tombstone again. "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." He did not understand what these words meant. Surely Dumbledore had chosen them as the eldest member of the family once his mother has died.
"Are you sure he never mentioned?"
Hermione began. "No," said Harry curtly. "Then let's keep looking." And he turned away, wishing he had not seen the stone. He did not want his excited trepidation tainted with resentment.
"Here!"
cried Hermione again a few moments later from out of the darkness.
"Oh, no, sorry. I thought it said Potter."
She was rubbing at a crumbling mossy stone, gazing down at it, a little frown on her face.
"Harry, come back a moment."
He did not want to be sidetracked again, and only grudgingly made his way back through the snow toward her. "What?"
"Look at this."
The grave was extremely old, weathered so that Harry could hardly make out the name. Hermione showed him the symbol beneath it.
"Harry, it's the mark in the book."
He peered at the place she indicated. The stone was so worn that it was hard to make out what was engraved there, though there did seem to be a triangular mark beneath the nearly illegible name. Yeah, it could be. Hermione lit her wand and pointed it at the name on the headstone.
"It says Ignotus, I think."
"I'm going to keep looking for my parents, all right?" Harry told her, a slight edge to his voice, and he set off again, leaving her crouched beside the old grave.